This is Sybert signing into the walkthrough of the Red Alert Ant missions. I had a bit of trouble with this, so I decided to distill the advice that I took away from my playthrough, so hopefully if you're watching this, you can get through these missions with a bit less trouble than I did. Step 1, how do you unlock the Ant missions? Well, you shift-click this speaker on the homepage, and that will allow you to unlock the Ant missions. Let's jump into Mission 1. First thing to keep in mind is whatever you end this level with, you will keep into Mission 2. So keeping stuff alive has value in this mission and the next one. Second thing, this mission, in my opinion, is actually the hardest mission in the bunch, and the beginning is the hardest part. You have a bunch of buildings that are low health, you've got very few units, and the ants are coming for you. So if you are not ready for them, they can gut you immediately. The biggest hint I can give you here is that there are 2 money crates that you can capture, which will give you a huge cash boost right at the beginning. And depending on what your exact strategy is, it may be worth selling off some of these buildings right at the beginning to increase your cash boost. Next broad piece of advice, the ants come in from the 4 corners of the map, which means you can spawn camp them. But it does take a decent number of units and a decent amount of production to be able to do that, so you may not be able to spawn camp all 4 corners, and you probably won't be able to spawn camp them right at the beginning. When I played this through, to follow my own advice, I went basically all rifles. Get a couple of ore trucks right at the beginning and then go all rifles. I went with 1 ore truck initially when I got those crates and that cash boost, and then just tons of rifles. I added a 3rd ore truck eventually, and keep in mind that the ore near your base has a back entrance. Ants will sneak in there and they will kill your ore truck. When you're positioning your rifles, try to spread them out in a line so you have as many of them firing as possible. You want to kind of force the ants into a concave as much as you can. Get as many rifles unloading onto the ants as possible in every interaction. Now, you will probably encounter ants while you're on the move, and clicking on the ants can be difficult, so click near them and use the S key to issue a stop command, which will cause your units to stop moving and immediately attack the ants. This is a great way to get many of your riflemen to be able to fire at the ants at the same time. Wrapping up Mission 1, at the 5-minute mark, there is a big final attack sequence involving multiple fire ants. You need to be ready for this, and I think there's a second wave sometime around the 2-minute mark. So 5 minutes and 2 minutes, get ready for those punches that are coming your way. But after that, it's pretty smooth sailing, and I found riflemen to be the best option for this mission. Pure riflemen all the way. However, in the comments of the playthrough that I did, a number of people were actually suggesting the mine layer. I did not try out the mine layer, but apparently you can use the mine layer to mine up a couple of your entrances. Just remember, you do need to keep that service depot alive so that you can rearm your mine layer.
Reinforcements have arrived. Mission accomplished.
Okay, you've conquered the ants in Mission 1, let's move on to Mission 2. Now in Mission 2, there are 2 objectives. Destroy the bridges, save civilians from both of the towns. The civilians are evacuated via a water transport to an island in the northwest, but you can use this transport to send some units over to that island, and there you will find a technology center which you can capture with engineers, and a crate. Both of these things are useless as far as I can tell. The crate does something, but I don't know what, and the technology center doesn't unlock anything as far as I can tell, and neither action is needed to complete the mission. But there you go, it's a thing to do, I guess. There is green gas being emitted near the civilian transport. This gas kills the ants. So if you're having some trouble, you can try, instead of deploying your MCV in your base, deploy your MCV near that transport so that the gas acts as a line of defense for you. Now in this mission, there are 2 areas where the ants can spawn and then come and attack you. In the northeast and in the southeast. The northeast is the big one, that's the island with the bridges that you need to destroy. But in the southeast, you can go there right at the beginning of the game, hopefully, with your reinforcements from Mission 1, and find a single ant's nest with some explosive barrels nearby. Blow up the barrels, it'll spawn some gas, taking care of that anthill. And then there are 3 money crates that you can collect, giving you a cash boost right at the beginning of Mission 2. This will allow you to get up lots of riflemen as reinforcements, and any additional ore trucks that you may need for mission number 2. Now for this mission, I personally went with riflemen and medium tanks. The combination of riflemen and medium tanks allows you to blow up the bridges, and medium tanks do a decent job versus the ants, but once again, when you're moving your units, you're going to want to try and get close and then use that S key to stop your units to unload massive damage onto the ants. Riflemen and medium tanks accomplish this perfectly. Now, there is an unlisted time limit in this mission. Eventually, if you don't destroy the bridges to the ant island soon enough, eventually, the ants will overwhelm both of the towns and kill the civilians, but it takes a little while for this to happen, so don't sweat it. Now, in one attempt, I did try to build a ton of riflemen and cross the bridges to just spawn camp the anthills, and from what I can tell, the game just never stops spawning warrior ants. So you can cross the bridge and try and surround them, but the ants will eventually overwhelm you, and you'll just be wasting a ton of money sending reinforcements onto the island when it's way more efficient to just blow up the bridges. The bridges are very difficult to kill if you don't have a lot of units, so my first attempt at this took many tries because my units kept dying to the ants as they were trying to force fire and kill the bridge, which, by the way, if you don't know how to force fire, hold control and click to attack. It'll allow you to blow up barrels in the bottom right if sometimes your units don't acquire them as targets, or any time that you need to blow up something that's considered neutral. A combination of riflemen and medium tanks will make destroying the bridges much easier than riflemen alone or light tanks or anything like that. That was my combination that worked really well. Once the 3 bridges are destroyed, the ants are isolated and you have a clear path to save the civilians. If you take civilians from both villages in the first transport, then you will accomplish the mission when they unload. On to Mission 3. Now, at the start of Mission 3, there are 2 ants that come and attack your forces, and they sometimes will target your MCVs, so be careful, you can lose the mission right away if you don't take care of those ants quickly enough. Little tip here, if you didn't know, mammoth tanks will auto-heal over time, so having your mammoth tanks tank damage from the ants is your best option because you can take advantage of their free repairs. Now, there are 7 anthills you need to gas to complete the mission, and you only get the scientists at the beginning. You can't build more, they don't send reinforcements. If those scientists die, you lose the mission, but you only need to keep one of them alive to complete the mission. However, if you have enough units, it's pretty easy to keep all of the scientists alive. Now, there is an anthill right near where you start, so you'll want to gas that one immediately. The gas sometimes fails to render, so you will have gassed an anthill, and then you may notice a couple of minutes later that the gas is not visually there anymore. However, it is still there, you just can't see it, and if any ants spawn, they will die. Now, once I got a couple of ore trucks out, I positioned 2 squads of riflemen near the land bridges that are near your base, and then I used the rest of my units to move north and clear the 2 anthills that are above your base. I could also safely base crawl up there to establish new refineries. Now, for this mission, me personally, I built a couple of medium tanks, but again, I mostly went mass riflemen. In the northwest is actually a Soviet base, and I think this is sort of the one you're supposed to get to last, but if you want, you can actually go there relatively early, and you can then capture that Soviet base, take over the buildings, and then you have Soviet units that you can produce, which is pretty neat. And the Soviet base does allow you to produce aircraft, which is nice because the ants don't shoot up, so you have some free damage that you can do. One quick tip with the scientists, you just move them onto an anthill to gas it, but most anthills, if not all anthills, will spawn a couple of ants after the gas is deployed, and those ants can sometimes get a hit in on a scientist and insta-kill them before the gas kills the ant. So once you gas an anthill, move your scientists away so that there isn't a chance that the ants will kill them. This is pretty rare, even when it does happen, but I would really hate for it to happen 6 times in a row to someone and then you fail the mission because of this random chance event. Alternatively, for the fun mode, you just build mammoth tanks because mammoth tanks are awesome. Like Mission 1, this gets easier the longer it goes on. As long as you're able to keep your ore trucks alive, keep your riflemen pumping out, surround those ants, use the S key, this one should be pretty easy. And that takes us to Mission 4. We go underground with limited units and no MCV. Now, when you start this mission, they give you a nice group of units, including a commando, Stravos, who can basically insta-kill ants. He has quite a fast attack speed, he has pretty good range, and he's overall quite a good commando unit to have. At the start of the mission, it says the power is out, which really just means the shroud regrows, so you have a very limited range of vision. But you can activate generators to turn the lights on, which will allow the shroud to not regrow anymore, meaning any area that you've been, you will be able to see. For the most part, ants don't spawn in behind you, so this mission is actually pretty straightforward. Now, I'm pretty bad at unit control, so I like to separate out my grenadiers and my flamethrowers and keep them on a separate hotkey. I will create a little suicide squad of those units and keep everyone else safely behind them. My flamers and my grenadiers, they lead the way. They blow up the barrels, they take on the ants, and eventually I'll make a mistake and they will all die. But then I have my backup unit. Rifles, rockets, Stravos, medics, and I usually keep one flamethrower mixed into that group. But one flamethrower isn't too much of a threat to your units. My biggest mistake with this mission the first time was walking into the darkness too quickly. If you move slowly forward through this mission, it's pretty easy to see the ants on the edge of vision and get a sense for what kind of danger lies ahead. You can also trigger barrels to be able to blow ants up before you even get there, and activating this Tesla coil by going to this panel over here is a great opening move. Then you can retreat to the Tesla coil if you ever are getting overwhelmed by ants, and it allows you to have a line of defense to come back to. As you're playing this mission, go ahead and explore all of the hallways and rooms that you find. Some of the hallways are dead ends, but most of the time those dead ends contain upgrade crates, so you can get firepower and armor upgrades for your units, and the point of the mission is to kill all of the ants, so you might as well explore those places so that you can find all of the ants that you need to kill to complete the mission. As soon as you enter this room, it'll spawn a bunch of ants, and this is one of the places where I died on my first playthrough, because those ants come at you from two directions. So if you don't have enough units, you will definitely die here. That's why I chose to retreat to that Tesla coil. They will come for you down there, but the Tesla coil will deal with most of those ants. Now you get some reinforcements, which is nice. My units have definitely been thinned out a little bit from this first part of the mission, so the reinforcements are a nice addition. Once you clear that room, you get a mammoth tank as well, and mammoth tanks do have that heal over time, so a mammoth tank is a great unit to tank some damage from the ants while your infantry deal with the rest. Be wary of this upgrade crate. The Ant Queen does have a ranged Tesla attack, and it will be able to hit whatever unit goes into the corner to get that upgrade crate. Once you clear out the Queen's guards, there aren't many ants left, so you can just sort of rush the Queen and go for her. There will be an additional ant that spawns from somewhere else in the facility and will come and attack you after the Queen dies. I don't know where this ant comes from, but just watch your back. After that, just a couple of larvae to clean up, and you win the mission.
Mission accomplished.
That is the end of this challenging and fun mini campaign in Red Alert. Hopefully this guide gave you enough information to complete these missions on whatever difficulty you want without too much of a headache. Thank you all very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and this is Sybert signing out.